This is
See
restaurant.
how dumb you is?
Oh, you dumb, bro. What's up with your disrespectful shit, bro?
Because you got out of the car with the nigga.
I'm not being no shit, bro.
From the moment the first reports started spreading online, fans felt the same chill run down their spine. Something was wrong. And the whispers surrounding Joy's sudden accident were far more chaotic than anyone expected. Across social media, viewers were stunned as incomplete details, emotional reactions, and messy accusations turned the entire Love and Hip Hop Miami storyline upside down. And right at the center of this swirling storm stood Trick Daddy, visibly shaken in the clips being circulated, his voice unsteady, his eyes filled with a kind of fear fans had never seen before. People online began saying that whatever this situation was, it had pushed him into a state where the tension was impossible to hide. But what really sent shockwaves through the fan base was the wave of claims pointing fingers at Samantha. No one knows where the conversation started, but within hours, accusations began spreading like wildfire, commenters suggesting she might have been involved somehow, or at least connected to the events leading up to Joy's accident. These weren't confirmations, just the kind of explosive chatter that catches fire instantly in reality TV circles. Fans were left divided, some defending Samantha fiercely, insisting she had nothing to do with it, while others demanded answers, replaying old footage and resurfacing past drama to build theories of their own. Emotion was everywhere. Anger, confusion, sympathy, suspicion, all of it blending together until it became impossible to separate truth from rumor. The story kept shifting, twisting, expanding, and viewers couldn't look away even for a moment. And as more clips surfaced showing Trick Daddy wiping his face, pacing, or refusing to speak, fans started asking the same question: what exactly happened before Joy's accident? And why are so many people suddenly pointing at Samantha? This wasn't just another Love and Hip Hop moment. This was raw panic, messy history, an unresolved tension colliding all at once, and the internet was holding its breath, waiting for someone, anyone, to finally explain the truth behind these explosive claims. The tension across social media grew heavier with every new clip that surfaced, and in the middle of that storm sat Trick Daddy, visibly shaken in a way fans had rarely seen. People kept replaying the footage not because of curiosity alone, but because there was something haunting about his expression, something that felt deeper than shock. His eyes looked clouded, almost as if he was grappling with a fear he couldn't explain. Those who had followed him for years said they'd never witnessed him break like that. Not even during his biggest public feuds, or the moments when things got heated on camera. But this was different. This was a man terrified for someone. He cared about the circulating reports claimed that Joy's accident happened so suddenly that no one had enough time to react. Some witnesses said everything unfolded in seconds, leaving confusion behind like a trail of dust. The noise, the rush, the panic, it all blended into a blur. A few people nearby tried piecing together what they heard, giving their own accounts of Joy appearing distressed, moving quickly, maybe trying to walk away from something or someone. Nothing was proven, but the descriptions created an image of a woman who had been carrying a storm inside her long before the accident took place. The internet began stitching these pieces together, forming a narrative that kept growing with every refresh. Fans started digging into Joy's recent behavior, pointing out that she had appeared unusually quiet in her latest public moments. She wasn't her lively, confident self. She looked like someone walking through a fog of thoughts she didn't want to share. Several people said she had pulled away from conversations, avoiding eye contact and staying off social media. In a world where every breath is recorded, her silence spoke louder than anything she could have posted. And that silence is what made fans suspicious. They wondered whether Joy had been dealing with emotional pressure behind the scenes, something she didn't want exposed. Some viewers believed the tension traced back to Samantha, even though there was no official confirmation linking the two. Still, fans insisted that the clues were there if you looked closely. The older footage resurfaced clips of awkward exchanges, tight smiles, conversations cut short, and moments where Joy seemed uncomfortable whenever Samantha's name came up. People paused those scenes, zoomed into facial expressions, and analyzed body language as if decoding a hidden message. The comments grew louder with each passing hour. Viewers argued over what might have triggered the emotional weight Joy seemed to be carrying. Some thought she felt overshadowed. Others believed she was tired of unresolved issues that had been swept under the rug for too long. The theories multiplied so fast that it became impossible to keep track. One person claimed Joy was dealing with something explosive that she discovered recently, while another insisted she was trying to protect herself from being dragged into unnecessary chaos. The truth was buried under layers of conflicting stories. But the emotional fallout was undeniable. Then came the moment that made the entire situation feel painfully real. The clip of Trick Daddy running toward the entrance of the building, his voice trembling as he asked someone what exactly happened. People replayed the audio not because it was clear, but because the tone revealed everything. There was fear, desperation, confusion, and heartbreak tangled in every word he tried to say. It didn't matter whether they were still together, separated, or somewhere in between. This reaction showed that Joy still meant something to him, something deep enough to shake him to his core. Witnesses around the scene described him pacing, holding his head, unable to stand still. He kept asking questions, trying to grasp the situation. But the chaos of the moment didn't allow anyone to give clear answers. Fans watching the circulating clips felt the panic rise within themselves. They typed things like, "He looks completely broken," and "This isn't just TV drama anymore." Even people who didn't usually side with him found a soft spot seeing him. So vulnerable, the flood of reactions triggered another wave of speculation, this time directed towards Samantha. People began pointing fingers, saying she must have played some role in Joy's emotional state before the accident. Again, nothing confirmed, but the internet doesn't need confirmation to build momentum. Old disagreements between Joy and Samantha resurfaced, creating a picture of unresolved tension that fans amplified tenfold. Someone posted a theory claiming Samantha had said something upsetting earlier that week, though no evidence backed it up. Others insisted they saw her earlier near the scene, which added fuel to the fire even though no one could verify the claim. Every new rumor created a fresh explosion online. Fans argued fiercely, some defending Samantha and saying she had nothing to do with Joy's condition, while others blamed her entirely, weaving their own stories from scattered fragments. The arguments spread across platforms, splitting audiences into two emotional camps. One side worried about Joy's well-being, the other debated Samantha's involvement based purely on assumption. Still, amid all the noise, the shared concern for Joy kept the conversation grounded. As time passed, more unofficial details circulated, each adding to the swirling tension. One person claimed Joy had left a conversation abruptly just before the incident. Another said they heard raised voices, though no one could confirm if Joy was even involved. People nearby kept retelling what they thought they saw, and with each retelling, the story grew thicker, heavier, and more dramatic. It became clear that no one knew exactly what happened in the moments leading up to the accident. But everyone felt its emotional impact. There were whispers that Joy might have been planning to confront someone or address something important. Fans grabbed onto that idea, twisting it into hundreds of theories. Some said she had discovered something unsettling. Others believed she was pushed to an emotional limit. The debate reached a point where no version of the story could be considered reliable because everything was based on assumption. Still, the intensity of the discussion didn't die down. It only grew stronger as more viewers and pages contributed their own interpretations. And through all of this, Trick Daddy's reaction remained the center of attention. Viewers kept posting screenshots of his distressed expression, saying it reflected the true weight of the situation. Its emotional breakdown overshadowed everything else, turning the narrative into something far more personal and raw than anyone expected. his fear. The deeper people got into the circulating reports, it's clearer it became that this wasn't just another love and hip-hop argument or a staged moment for cameras. This was something that shook everyone involved, something that carried emotional weight heavy enough to leave fans anxious, glued to their screens, and desperate to know what led to such a dramatic and painful moment. The tension that settled over everyone after the accident refused to fade. Even as the night dragged on, and people tried to convince themselves that things would calm down, Trick Daddy stayed near Joy's hospital room, barely moving, barely speaking, as if the whole world had slowed down around him. He kept replaying everything in his head, trying to make sense of how things had spiraled so quickly and why Samantha's name kept coming up in every whispered conversation outside the room. Every time the door opened and a nurse stepped out, he jerked a little, afraid they would bring news he wasn't ready to hear. Joy's absence from his side had become a weight he didn't know how to carry. He had taken her presence for granted for so many years, and now, seeing her unconscious with bruises he couldn't protect her from, he felt something shift inside him. Something that tasted like regret mixed with anger he couldn't fully understand. People from the show began appearing one by one, either out of concern or curiosity, and the small waiting area filled with quiet exchanges and sideways glances. Everyone wanted to know what really happened. The whispers about Samantha started early. Fueled by her sudden disappearance right after the accident, the story spread that she had been seen arguing with Joy earlier that day. Something about boundaries being crossed and disrespect piling up over time. No one had the full details, but in situations like this, half information grew into full accusations without anyone stopping to check the truth. Trick Daddy felt the judgment in the room. The way people looked at him, like he should already have the answers. Like he should know why Samantha had reacted the way she did, or what had caused the confrontation in the first place. When the police finally showed up to take statements, the atmosphere shifted again. Everything that had been floating around in vague speculation suddenly became real and heavy. The officers asked questions about the argument, about Samantha leaving quickly, about whether Joy seemed upset before getting into the car. Trick tried answering them, but his voice kept breaking. And every time he mentioned Joy's name, he felt a tightness in his throat he couldn't hide. He wasn't used to feeling powerless, especially not in front of strangers, but tonight stripped him of every ounce of control he thought he had. Even the officers noticed how shaken he was, and one of them tried to reassure him that accidents happen and that nothing was confirmed yet. But the words barely touched him. What mattered was that Joy wasn't awake, and that alone made everything feel uncertain. That the doctors finally came out with an update that brought a strange mixture of relief and confusion. They said Joy was stable, that she would wake up soon, but they also mentioned something unexpected they had noticed during her scans. They didn't go into details in the hallway, asking instead that Trick wait until she was conscious before they explained anything fully. The way they phrased it made his stomach twist. He wondered what it could possibly be, why they looked at him with a softness that felt like they were holding back something delicate. He tried pushing the thought aside, reminding himself that Joy waking up was the only thing that mattered at the moment. But even then, the uncertainty gnawed at him quietly. When Joy finally opened her eyes, it felt like the entire room exhaled at once. Trick rushed to her side, gripping her hand gently, afraid to show how scared he had been, but unable to hide the relief on his face. Joy blinked slowly, trying to understand where she was, and the confusion in her eyes made him ache. She whispered his name, her voice rough but steady, and he felt something inside him break open. She asked what happened, and before he could answer, the doctor stepped in, carefully explaining that she had experienced a mild concussion along with a few injuries from the crash. Joy listened quietly, nodding in small movements as if she was trying to absorb everything at once. Then the doctor paused before mentioning the detail they had held back earlier. They told her they found signs in her tests that suggested she might be pregnant, that further evaluations were needed to confirm it. But the possibility was there. The room went silent in a way that felt unreal. Trick froze. Joy stared at the doctor, and for a moment, no one knew what to say. Joy's eyes widened slightly as she tried to process something she clearly hadn't expected. She didn't react with excitement or fear, just shock that ran deeper than anything she had felt. Since waking up, Trick looked at her, trying to understand what she was thinking, but he saw only a mix of emotions layered over exhaustion. The news didn't stay private for long. Someone in the hallway overheard a nurse mention additional tests, and within minutes, rumors started spreading faster than anyone could control. By the time Joy had sat up fully, her phone was already buzzing nonstop. People from the show group chats were asking questions, some out of concern and others out of pure drama. The whispers reached social media too, and fans started speculating whether Joy's accident had revealed something she had been hiding. The comments grew louder, with some people blaming Samantha even more harshly now, assuming she had caused stress or confrontation that may have played a role. The narrative twisted itself into something Joy hadn't even had time to understand yet. Trick sat beside her, feeling torn between wanting to protect her from everything outside the room and needing answers himself. He didn't know whether to ask her directly about the possibility of pregnancy or whether that would only add pressure she didn't need. Joy sensed the tension in him and finally told him she had no idea, that she hadn't felt any different and hadn't suspected anything. She said she needed time to think, to breathe, to let her body and mind settle before she could even begin to understand what the doctor had said. Trick nodded, trying to respect that, but deep down he felt something heavy settle in his chest. The idea of Joy carrying a secret like that, intentional or not, made him reconsider so many things about their history, their distance, and the unresolved emotions they had ignored for years. The situation intensified when a producer from the show contacted Trick directly, asking for clarification about the rumors spreading online. Trick snapped, telling them this wasn't the time and that Joy's health mattered more than their storyline. But even as he said that, he knew the show wouldn't let the moment go. They thrived on drama, and this was the kind of twist they would chase endlessly. He could already see how the narrative would be shaped against Samantha, how she would be painted as the villain before she even had the chance to speak. And while Trick wasn't ready to defend her, he also didn't want the situation to explode further. While Joy was still recovering, the night ended with more questions than answers. Joy rested quietly again, trying to shut out the noise, and Trick stayed beside her, watching her breathe as if making sure she stayed safe. The doctor planned additional tests for the morning, and the police said they would return to finish gathering statements. Everything felt uncertain, with emotions layered on top of each other in a way neither of them had expected when the day began. Trick looked at Joy and realized how fragile everything had become. How quickly life had shifted into a place where nothing felt stable. And even though he didn't know what the morning would bring, he knew one thing for sure. The truth was unraveling, piece by piece, in ways that would change all of them forever. The morning light slipped through the thin hospital curtains, creating a soft glow across the room where Joy lay resting. The night had been long and heavy, filled with questions neither she nor Trick had answers for yet. The uncertainty still settled between them, but now it carried a quietness that made everything feel even more fragile. Trick had barely slept, his mind replaying every moment of the previous day, trying to fit together pieces that didn't belong to the same puzzle. He kept looking at Joy as if afraid that if he looked away, something might shift again. Even the small sounds in the hallway made him tense, as though he expected someone to walk in with more news he wasn't ready to hear. When Joy finally woke up, she blinked against the light, her expression soft but tired. Slowly toward Trick, offering a faint smile that carried both reassurance and hidden confusion. Trick leaned closer, asking how she felt, and she whispered that she still felt dizzy but better than before. The doctor came in a little later, checking. Word had already spread outside the hospital walls far more than Joy expected. Her phone buzzed constantly, but she muted it, not wanting to deal with the questions or assumptions circling online. Trick checked his phone once and saw fans arguing about what had happened, some blaming Samantha fiercely, others comforting Joy, and others questioning whether the accident had something to do with deeper tensions behind the scenes. The comments were endless, and the speculation grew louder with every passing hour. Trick felt anger rising in him as he read people twisting the situation into something dramatic for entertainment. Ignoring the fact that Joy was still recovering physically and emotionally, he put his phone away and looked at Joy. She stared at the ceiling with a distant expression, lost between reality and the story the world was trying to shape for her. He whispered softly, asking if she wanted him to turn her phone off completely. She nodded, saying she didn't have the strength to deal with anyone yet, not until she understood what was happening inside her own life. Trick gently took her phone, placing it in the drawer beside her bed, trying to protect her from the chaos. Waiting right outside the walls, the police returned mid-morning to complete their questioning. They spoke to Joy with patience, asking if she remembered anything from the moments before the accident. Joy explained that she remembered driving off after feeling overwhelmed but couldn't recall the details clearly. The last thing she remembered was gripping the wheel tightly and trying to breathe through the tension that had built up after the confrontation earlier. When they asked about Samantha, she hesitated before saying she didn't want to accuse anyone without knowing all the facts. The officers nodded, appreciating her honesty. But the expression on their faces showed that Samantha had already become a central point in the investigation. Trick watched the officers leave with a mix of frustration and helplessness swirling. In him, he knew Samantha had a temper, but he didn't know whether she had anything to do with the accident. He kept replaying their interactions from earlier in the week, trying to remember if there had been signs of tension he ignored. But the more he thought about it, the more confused he felt. He wasn't ready to point fingers, especially not when Joy was still trying to make sense of her own emotions. But the conversations happening outside the room made it clear that Samantha was quickly becoming the target of blame. A little while later, one of the producers arrived, trying to appear concerned but failing to hide the curiosity behind their questions. They asked Joy how she was feeling and made subtle attempts to get her to talk about the possibility of pregnancy. Trick stepped in immediately, telling them it wasn't the time and that they needed to give her space. The producer backed off, but not without making it clear that the situation was becoming a major talking point for the show. Joy's face stiffened slightly, realizing that her personal life was already sliding into public territory before she could catch her breath. After the producer left, Joy let out a shaky breath, her eyes glistening with frustration. She murmured that she didn't want her potential pregnancy to become a storyline before she even knew the truth herself.
Great.
Trick moved closer, resting a reassuring hand on her arm, telling her she didn't owe anyone an explanation right now. Joy's thoughts were tangled in ways she couldn't articulate yet. She wondered how everything had escalated so fast, how a private moment had turned into a public storm without her permission. She wasn't even sure how she felt about the possibility of pregnancy because she hadn't processed it long enough to form an emotion. 'Twas all too sudden, too raw, too connected to a moment of fear she didn't want to revisit. As the day progressed, Joy went through additional tests quietly, not asking many questions and simply letting the medical staff guide her through the procedures. Trick walked beside her each time, keeping a steady presence even when she didn't look at him. He sensed that she wasn't ready to speak openly about her fears, and he didn't want to push her. He had seen her strong through so many moments in their lives, but today she seemed softer, not weak, but vulnerable in a way he hadn't seen in years. It made him realize how much he wanted to protect her, even if the boundaries of their relationship had blurred long ago. After the last test, Joy returned to her room and sat quietly, staring out the window at the sky turning from morning brightness into muted gray. Trick sat across from her, watching her closely but giving her enough space to breathe. She finally turned to him and asked softly what he thought about everything. The question surprised him, not because she asked, but because of the emotion behind her voice. He admitted he didn't know what to think yet, that he wanted her to focus on getting better first. But he added gently that whatever the results revealed, she didn't have to face anything alone. Joy looked at him with an expression that held both gratitude and uncertainty. She whispered that she wasn't sure how people would react, especially since she hadn't expected this possibility at all. Trick shook his head, telling her that people's opinions didn't matter right now. Not when her health and peace were at stake. The afternoon stretched on with long pauses and unspoken fears, settling between them. Joy's mind drifted constantly between the accident, Samantha, the test results, and the sudden whirlwind outside the hospital. She couldn't escape the feeling that her life had been exposed without warning, leaving her to pick up the pieces, while being watched by everyone. Trick remained quietly by her side, occasionally adjusting her blanket or offering her water, trying to make her feel as safe as possible. But even he could sense the storm building outside, growing louder with each passing minute. As evening approached, a nurse informed Joy that the test results would be available soon. The words settled heavily in the room, echoing in a way that made both her and Trick freeze slightly. Joy nodded slowly, her heartbeat quickening as she prepared herself for an answer she didn't know how to receive. Trick reached out, taking her hand gently, giving her silent reassurance. Joy stared at their hands for a moment before looking up at him, her eyes reflecting every emotion she had tried to contain all day. The air felt still around them, the kind of calm that arrives just before a truth that changes everything. The quiet inside the room grew heavier as the nurse stepped in holding a small envelope. Joy felt her breath shorten, her fingers tightening unconsciously around the edge of the blanket. Kay stood up slowly, his heartbeat echoing in his ears as the nurse handed Joy the results and stepped out, leaving them in a silence thick enough to feel. Joy stared at the envelope for a long moment before opening it with trembling hands, her eyes scanning the words carefully, her expression shifting into something neither shock nor relief could fully describe. She looked up at Trick with a deep exhale, unable to speak at first, as her emotions tangled inside her chest. Trick moved closer, asking softly what it said, his voice almost cracking. Joy blinked, steadying herself before explaining that the results weren't a confirmation, but showed signs that needed follow-up once she recovered. The accident had complicated things, and the doctors wanted to wait before giving any definite answer. The uncertainty filled the room like a slow-moving wave, but instead of panic, Joy felt a strange calm wash over her. She whispered that maybe this was the universe forcing her to slow down, to breathe, to take control of her own story again. Trick sat beside her, telling her he wasn't going anywhere, no matter where this journey led. Joy nodded gently, feeling comfort in his presence even as questions waited quietly inside her mind. Outside, the world continued to speculate. Arguments grew louder, and Samantha's name kept circling through every conversation. But in this moment, Joy felt a sense of clarity. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew she wanted to heal, to understand herself, and to step forward without fear. The storm around them hadn't ended, but for the first time, Joy felt strong, enough to face whatever came next. Before you go, take a moment and really think about everything that unfolded here. Every twist, every accusation, every unexpected turn has left the entire Love and Hip Hop Miami fan base buzzing, and now it's your turn to step into the conversation. What do you think actually pushed this situation to the edge? Do you believe the rumors making rounds online? Or do you think there's a whole different truth hiding behind the scenes that no one has talked about yet? Your voice matters, and you're part of the community that keeps these stories alive. So scroll down and tell us what you think. Do you feel Samantha crossed a line? Trick reacting from fear or guilt? Most importantly, where do you see Joy going from here after everything she's been through? Your perspective might be the one everyone else ends up